This is what college football looks like, and it's the same everywhere. Good times eating, drinking, and we all sort of pretend like we know what the hell's gonna happen. So even though I'm in New York and not on campus, all season long, I'm eating, drinking, and figuring out what the hell's gonna happen in the games of the week. This is Easy Call.
It's a little bit soggy in the Lower East Side. Can I still eat tacos and talk about college football? Yeah, I can. All right, week 7. It's a big week, actually. A lot of fun games in the afternoon, a lot of early games. So I'm gonna go early tacos. I got a Mexican feast right here in front of me. So first game, LSU, Florida. Tigers giving 8 points at home at Death Valley. A lot of athletes on the field here. Keys for Florida. That defensive front needs to be able to rotate in talent, especially with Dominique Easley out against that great LSU run game. Number 2, Florida needs to get a clean game from Tyler Murphy going against that defense, that LSU defense. He's been clean, he's been effective. They need more of that. Number 3, that secondary needs to be able to run with LSU's receivers. Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham are great. Florida's secondary, great. That's a huge matchup for them. Keys for LSU. LSU's speed needs to separate itself. Those two guys, Landry and Beckham, probably the best duo, not just as receivers, but in the return game, they're going to need to be great. Number 2, that defensive front, you can stop Florida's run game. That offensive line for the Gators is good, but you can stop them. And number 3, John Chavis against Tyler Murphy in his first big, huge road game. That's advantage John Chavis. Confuse him, turn 3rd and 4s into 3rd and impossibles. It's a great matchup. I'm taking the Tigers here to win, but I'm going to take the points here with Florida. The defense might be the best in the country. I can't bet against them, just like I'm betting with these carnitas. Give it a nice squirt. You got some salsa verde on here. A little bit crisp. It's been on the flat top. Pro move. The carnitas, very tender, very slow cooked, very much so. You can taste that. Very juicy, you can see. Next, the huge West Coast battle, perhaps of the season other than Oregon, Stanford. I'm glad I'm eating tacos. Got to honor the West Coast. Oregon, 13.5-point favorites at Washington, at Husky Stadium, a loud Husky Stadium. This is going to be huge. Oregon on the road. The keys, that secondary is going to have to run one-on-one, especially if Bishop Sankey gets going with those Washington receivers. 2, offensive line needs to get a push. Oregon does not have a warrior running back like LaMichael James was. D'Anthony Thomas is hobbled. Byron Marshall, good, but not that warrior. And finally, number 3, can't be making mistakes against a Washington team at Husky Stadium. We should know that by now. Keys for Washington. That defensive front needs to be able to contain Oregon horizontally, flush running backs wide, and make tackles in the open field. Second for Washington, that offensive line needs to be able to get a push against a very good Oregon front. They've looked questionable these past couple years, but good this season. Force Oregon to bring a safety up against a really good Bishop Sankey. And third, turnovers. They need to flip the field against Oregon. They need to change the momentum in this game because you can't go toe-to-toe with Oregon without interrupting them. If you're going to stop once they get rolling and on a rhythm, it's a tidal wave of pain. I'm going to go Oregon here. I think they're rolling too much. I think they're built for a team like Washington with that tempo, with the athletes that Oregon has on defense. They win by 18, 42 to 24, I guess, would be 18 points. I think it's going to be close, but Oregon has too much talent. Carne asada is a good indicator. I like that. The carnitas didn't have the same kick. There's hot sauce on this. It's spilling out delicious. Ooh. Yeah, it's affecting me. I need water. All right, big Mexican feast. Might as well go Big Ten. Wisconsin hosting Northwestern after a big Northwestern game and after a big week off for Wisconsin. Wisconsin favored here by 10.5 points, which is, it makes it a little bit interesting. Keys for Northwestern, that defensive front needs to make first contact count against, they got really good running backs in Wisconsin. Next, X's and O's for Northwestern. They need to perform on 3rd downs on both sides of the ball. Stop those Wisconsin drives early on offense and continue those Northwestern drives. Make key plays at key moments. And finally, they need to get really nice QB play because Wisconsin really good against the run. So that means Trevor Siemian needs to find Tony Jones, maybe some play action stuff, soften up that Wisconsin front. Keys for Wisconsin, that offensive line, you can push Northwestern back. You saw how they did against Ohio State in the second half. Free up Melvin Gordon, free up James White. They're real scary when they get loose. Number 2, turnovers. Wisconsin needs to play clean. We saw Northwestern last weekend take advantage of turnovers. We saw them against Cal take advantage of turnovers. Just play sound football. And finally, it's a road game for Northwestern. It's an emotional letdown spot for Northwestern. Going to Camp Randall, those jump-arounders and House of Painters need to make Northwestern scared and really fearful of all things. I'm going to go Wisconsin big here in a big letdown spot. I think 17 points feels about right. 34-17. I think James White gets loose. I think Melvin Gordon gets loose. I think they make it a fun time for those wearing red. I'm going to get in these sopes. I'm going red theme here. We've got chorizo. I'm not a huge fan of lettuce, Mexican food, but I feel like this is going to work. I mean, you're seeing a salsa verde theme here. That's why I probably like Oregon too. A little bit smoky. That tortilla is money. Ooh, this next one, Big 12 matchup. Baylor going on the road to the Little Apple as we're in the Big Apple against Kansas State, 19.5-point favorites. Baylor is first key for the Bears. Those running backs, Shock Linwood, Lake Seastrong, got to play really well inside, outside against a pretty inconsistent Kansas State run defense. Number 2, X's and O's. Kansas State's not going to be able to move the ball consistently through the air if it's Daniel Sams. Phil Bennett, that box is going to be stacked for 60 minutes. And finally, tempo. Baylor loves playing fast. They have no time of possession because they keep on scoring. They're going to need to run down this Kansas State defense that not as deep as it was last season. That's the way to keep them on their heels and tired. Keys for the home team, keys for Kansas State. If it's Daniel Sams, got to stay clean through the air, no mistakes. There's a lot of ways that Kansas State can keep this interesting. It's not going to be from out shooting Baylor. Number 2, Ty Zimmerman and that Kansas State secondary can't get caught looking at play action in that backfield because as soon as that happens, Baylor receivers gone, points, end of story. And lastly, it's a road game for Baylor. How many times did they win in their last 4 road games in 2012? 0 many times. It's something to be considered. Maybe Art Briles in that offense, just not great on the road. Kansas State can be a tough place to play. I don't know, there's something, the line feels a little bit weird, so I'm going to take the points there. I still think Baylor wins, but more like a 35-20 type game. They come back down to earth for at least a week. I know that sounds weird. And I know it sounds weird that I'm not going to go tacos right now, but you're talking about salsa verde enchiladas, the superior of the salsas, salsa verde. To quote Cliff Harris, money be green, gotta love green. Get some beans in there. Chicken's real tender, very creamy, delicious. Exactly how an enchilada should taste. Well done. Final game, and it's weird that the Red River Shootout is the 5th biggest game of the weekend, thanks Texas. But Oklahoma 13.5-point favorites here in Dallas. Texas keys, pretty simple. Case McCoy, mistake-free against Iowa State, do it again. It's a good Oklahoma defense. Gotta be, I've been saying a lot, gotta be clean. Number 2, that Texas defensive front, little beat up, but still, Oklahoma's not gonna throw the ball downfield a ton with Blake Bell. Wrap guys up on those screen, those horizontal passes. Eventually, maybe, sort of, you can try doing it. And finally, number 3, luck. Texas got pretty lucky against Iowa State, to say the least, on that Thursday night game. They can win this game with special teams, weird bounces, tipped balls. They need that. A ref making a dumb call, that would also help. Time for Boomer keys. Number 1, that defensive front, really good defensive front for Oklahoma. If Texas is going to win this game, it's going to be behind Jonathan Gray and Malcolm Brown. Stop them early. Number 2, test Texas deep. If they're going to sell out against those short passes, make them pay. And number 3, the X's and O's. Texas is really, really bad on 3rd downs. Don't overthink it, Oklahoma. You're going to get those yardage. They don't tackle well. They don't defend well. Greg Robinson is heavily involved in this game. It's the Red River Shootout. Oklahoma minus anything. I'm taking the Sooners here. I've seen Texas play. A lot to like about this Oklahoma defense. All right. It feels like guac time. It feels like Twitter time. You got some salsa. You got some chips. I got Twitter. Chilled container. Pro move. Oh, well done. Guac talk. First question, comes from Noah. I like this question a lot. Why is Northwestern a 9.5-point dog to Wisconsin after the Ohio State loss? And is it okay to mix salsas, tomatillo, and roja? Very good questions. Here's the answer. Northwestern's probably having a letdown spot here. Going on the road in a rough road environment, that's what the expectation is, especially with that run defense struggling against Ohio State. Answer to the second question, do not mix salsas. You can have them on the same plate. Do not physically mix them. Do not put them on the same item. This is a Capulets and Montagues situation. Don't do it. Oh yeah, we got one more. Once you guac, can't stop. Everybody knows that. Love the cold guac. All right, there's a question. It's a combo from Logan and Matt. First part of it, is Teddy Bridgewater good enough to justify giving 17 points against New York's team, Rutgers, at home? The answer is yeah. We've seen Teddy Bridgewater in a big game. He has that capability. I don't know if I'm taking Louisville, but good enough to justify. Second question, wants to power rank, and this is an outstanding one. Burritos, tacos, quesadillas. 1, tacos. See, they agree. Number 2, burritos. It's essentially a taco with rice and bean filler. Number 3, quesadillas. They can be delicious, throw guac on top, everything like that, but flour tortillas are for children and amateurs. So, food at Taqueria Lower East Side, obviously off the charts. I'm 18-10-2 on the season, still making you that sweet scratch. This week, Florida, Oregon, Oklahoma, Wisconsin, yeah, Kansas State. Listen, you gotta go out on a limb sometime, gotta have some balls, but it's time for siesta. Adios, amigo.